In today's news, Education Ministry receives 132 Chromebooks and District 6 application process for COVID-19 assistance closed.
Local entrepreneur Amberly Crabb donates $4,500 to Black Lives Matter internationally. All this and so much more when 284 News returns.
There's a reason you get up on a morning. A reason you pick yourself up, start the day. Maybe it's sheer grit. Maybe it's your ethics. Maybe it's because you know people like you are waiting for people just like you. We all have our reasons, and for Republic Bank, that reason is you. Every little thing, every big thing. It's all about making a difference in your life. Because after 182 years, if it's one thing we're sure about, is that the difference is you. We're here to help.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Welcome everybody, it's Tuesday, July 14th, 2020, another terrific day in Nature's Little Secrets. I'm Ron Grant.
And I am Javon Wilson, so blessed to be joining you once again for another great edition of 284 News.
Indeed. Now, before we get into our newscast, we want to advise the application process for COVID-19 assistance for District 6 residents has been closed. Now, this was made known during a recent Facebook post from the District 6 committee, which showed Honorable Alva Maduro-Kaynes photoed with hundreds of applications in front of her. Now, the post stated, and I quote, "So far, requests received by Friday's deadline for District 6, have been exceeding $247,000 of the $300,000 and are still climbing." Now, Honorable Kaynes said in an official comment, and I quote, "The people need help and our government is committed to help as many people as we can. The Premier instructed us to help renters, debit, and other expenses, and so I'm reviewing each application personally with hopes to begin payment as soon as possible." Now, this was only, ladies and gentlemen, from District 6 representative, the Honorable Alva Maduro-Kaynes. Javon, since posting this story, a lot of persons from various districts have been inquiring, well, what about my district?
Right.
What's happening on my end? But this is just based on a Facebook post that we gathered, and our team of reporters was quite sure to catch it and make sure that persons in District 6 know that the application process is closed.
And I think that information should be privy to the public. Like you said, many persons are inquiring. And just based on the numbers, Ron, $247,000 out of $300,000 clearly
still
shows.
climbing, yeah.
And still climbing, shows a really huge appetite for assistance. Now, we've reached out, I personally reached out to Honorable Kaynes and a few of the other ministers to get a general consensus of what the needs are. Because one thing we know for sure is that monies are not necessarily being handed out. You have to present a bill, you have to basically quantify
Documentation is necessary.
the need. And we've been seeing a lot of that recently, but there's a circulating concern, and that concern is based on the fact that people think it might be politically guided or unfairly guided, based on the fact that it's discretionary based, but the Premier has often reiterated that it won't be, and it's fair across the board. So we would just hope and pray that that's the situation.
Well, Jovan, just to piggyback off what you said, I do think that the concerns of it being not political but discretionary based is a huge concern.
Yes.
When you think of stimulus, ladies and gentlemen, stimulus is not based on a needs basis. A stimulus, the purpose of a stimulus is to assist preventative prior to an incident happening. What we see in our country is that it's come more so on the latter, but even so, when you have deadlines for small businesses and daycare centers that have been set by the government, and to date they have not been upheld, that's a problem. If you're going to put out a deadline for persons to apply, and many persons throughout the community have been applying, but to date the application process for certain aspects seems to keep pushing back, so that's of concern. So we want to watch that closely, which we absolutely will.
All right, viewers, we have to head straight into our newscast for today. We're beginning with some good news. Now, we'd all recall our exclusive interview with local entrepreneur Miss Amberly Crabb, who, in wanting to lend her support to the global Black Lives Matter movement, decided to launch a local line of T-shirts. Now, not only did that go manifest, but With the selfless support of the community, our community that is, Ms. Crabb was able to not only raise awareness on Black Power, but also through her sales today, she was actually able to contribute $4,500 in
Terrific.
proceeds, of course, to the football superstars Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights Foundation. Now, to tell us all about this amazing effort is Miss Amberly herself. So, listening.
I would like to say I am indeed grateful. I am humbled. I am honored. I am appreciative of all those who came out. You purchased T-shirts in support of the Black Lives Matter movement to raise awareness that our lives matter as well. You understand, or you understood, that though we are here in the BVI, we are indeed affected by injustice to our people wherever they may be located, because we travel, we venture outside of our borders, we have family and friends who travel, and for that, injustice against our people anywhere puts us at risk, puts us in harm's way. And so I am thankful for those who understood that, and for that reason they came out, they purchased shirts. It was indeed a successful event. The shirts were used at the Black Lives Matter March. Persons participated in Blackout Friday on July 3rd on their jobs. They posted pictures as instructed, and we are indeed thankful. To Nova Vita, who was stellar. I mean, they did a wonderful job in facilitating last minute requests from us, from companies. I am indeed grateful to you. I am thankful for your kind hearts. You were amazing, and I will encourage anyone under the sound of my voice who would like to support local young business, to get your branded apparel. Try Nova Vita. They're located in the Wasiski building next to the roundabout in town. Crazy Trends, for your participation. We thank you. To all those, again, heartfelt thank you. The event was a success, and I would like to report that we raised a total of $4,492 in T-shirt sales strictly. And those funds were sent off this morning to the Colin Kaepernick's Foundation. As we have been stressing throughout our efforts, throughout the movement, we chose this organization because of his stance that he took back in 2016, when it was not the popular thing to do, at the call of risking all that he had worked up a professional career for. He was very courageous, and he took a stance against police brutality, against minorities in America. And once the murder of George Floyd happened, he was again one of the first public figures that I saw who came out and took a stand to post bail for those protesters who could not afford to do so financially, where cash bail was required. And for that reason, his legal defense organization or arm to his camp was selected for donations. And I think you would have seen, Javon, a copy of the confirmation letter that was received. We raised some, as I said, $4,492. It was so close to $4,500. I just tacked on the $8, and we sent off a whooping $4,500. I am thankful. Thank you all. And the dialogue has not ended. The conversation is not over. Black lives matter. They always mattered. You just didn't realize it. And now we are taking a stance to say we matter. And you will treat us equally. You will treat us fair. no longer are we the group of people whose special laws have to be made for to allow us a seat at the table. If you're sitting at the table, I am just as much qualified to be at that table as you are. Again, thank you all. I am indeed grateful. I'm humbled. I'm honored.
Excellent news coming there from Miss Amberly Crabb. Now, confirmation of the donation was received via a letter that reads, quote, "Thank you very much for your generous contribution to the Know Your Rights camp. Your gift will help to advance the liberation and well-being of Black and Brown communities." That's, of course, coming from the organization itself. It also acknowledges the full amount, which was, again, $4,500, and the date paid, which happens to be today, and further reiterates the purpose of the organization. Naran, May 25th, 2020, probably
Yes.
a date that we'll never ever forget. This is the day, viewers, that Mr. George Floyd was gruesomely killed on the streets. Police officer, as we can recall, kneeled on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And while that in itself was a tragedy, it really brought to light the reality that Black people across the world are forced to grapple with. We'd all recall the support. Even recently, we marched on June 20th in the BVI. But I think what we don't realize is how that will have ripple effects for years to come,
agree.
because what it did, it also effectively highlighted many of the ills, many of the byproducts that we see of racism right here in the British Virgin Islands. So a group of young people mobilized, we marched, and now that group has a name, viewers. It's called NARAVIP. That is NARAVIP, and it stands for National Agendas for the Restoration of African Virgin Islands People. And really the goal is to restore the rightful heritage and identity of us as a people and truly determine what we want our future to look like. We started with the barbershop format conversation. That was really, I think, prior to the protest.
Yes.
And that will continue
Mellow
once a
moods,
month.
yeah.
Yes, it will be continuing once a month. And it's basically a laid-back conversation to speak about some of these systematic issues, Black empowerment, as well as inspiring some change in our community, but also taking responsibility
Which is
for
very
the
important.
roles that
Yeah.
we play, whether consciously or
I
unconsciously.
agree.
And also, viewers, there is a summer educational series coming soon on African and Virgin Islands history. And that is really to re-educate, again, us on Black history, to get a clearer understanding from whence we came, where we are, and where we want to be as a society. And I think, to be honest, it couldn't come at a better time. And again, I just want to reiterate, congratulations to Miss Amberly and also to the community.
The entire
and
team,
corporate
yeah,
BVI
yeah,
too.
for
CCT
stepping in.
stepped on board. Tweet for Media showed up and showed out.
Yes.
And the wider community joined hands in this effort. So I want to say kudos to everyone.
I must add to this conversation, Jovan, that not only did corporate BVI, particularly CCT, step in as it pertains to the Black Lives Matter movement, BVI, Black Lives Matter
Yes.
movement. However, certain corporations like CCT definitely made a stance as it pertains to we're not going to tolerate it locally, regionally, or
Right.
internationally. We're not dealing with it. We're not going to tolerate it because we have young Black men locally, like myself, who have traveled and studied, and we have to support the cause because these are our young men. One of the things that we have to understand is that many persons would say, is it the conversation? Should we even be talking about it? But
Right.
at the end of the day, Jovan, had it been the other way around, had it been myself being in college, a local BVI lander, or someone else getting the call, is that what it takes for us
Right.
to
To really
you know,
wake up and
pause and
acknowledge.
realize? And that's unacceptable. So I'm happy to see that a lot of corporate organizations such as CCT have stepped in. Now, continuing on the local scene, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fishery, and Agriculture has received another 132 Chromebooks through Unite BVI. The devices will be added to the ministry's loan program and will assist students in need of devices for remote learning. Now, the devices will be distributed to students in various public schools. Now, during the handover ceremony, Minister for Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries, and Agriculture, Dr. The Honorable D. Natalio Wheatley, said that the students of the territory are worth the investment, and he is grateful to Unite BVI and its partners for their contribution. In an official statement, he said, and I quote, "They have now provided us a total of 1,067 Chromebooks in less than 1,000 days, which is amazing," the minister added. And he said, by continuing, this has allowed us continuity in our education system after the storms of 2017 and during, of course, this pandemic. I thank Unite BVI and their corporate partners. Now, several donors have donated devices to the Chromebook project since 2017. This includes Jiraki Family and the Guana Island Fund with 100 Chromebooks. McLean Association for Children, Inc., they have donated some 200 Chromebooks. Unite BVI, 400 Chromebooks. And Bitter End Yacht Club, 367 Chromebooks. The donor collaborative also includes the BVI Founders Group, such as Kaikar Learning, represented by Chris McCarthy and Ricky Lappy, and Cable and Wireless Foundation. Now, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries, and Agriculture is grateful for the donors of the Chromebooks program and their continued contribution, and look forward to a more partnership, which we all do look forward to more partnership as it pertains to envisioning and instilling and protecting really our youth. We talk about they being our future, but this is actually a lot of corporate organizations putting their money where their mouth is. So we're absolutely grateful.
And like the minister said, our students certainly, they're worth the investment. And I know a survey was done to identify and really assess the needs, especially the needs of the most vulnerable students in our community. And based on what the minister is saying, it will be allocated according to that priority. So it's about time our
Indeed.
students continue to work hard, even in these deplorable conditions. We're very proud of them, and I'm really happy about corporate BVI stepping up and taking on this type of responsibility.
Wonderful. Now, still ahead, update on the USVI COVID-19 statistics, and legislation is coming for environmental retraction. All this and more when 284 News returns. We have a lot more in store for you, so stick and stay with us.
In the final analysis, we have two options: stay inside and create memories that will last forever, or go outside and say goodbye to those memories. We're not stuck inside, we're safer inside. The time is now to unite, embrace, and love each other from a distance. Show the world and the people in it just how much they mean to you by keeping your distance. It may be difficult, but necessary. Let's reintroduce humanity and heart to all homes. While we can't enjoy the sun, sand, and sea, let's take this time to remember why we are nature's little secrets. Stay inside, and when it's over, we would all be better, stronger, and we would all still be together. With self-discipline and patience, we can overcome. We are, have been, and will always be VI Strong. A message from your team at 284 Media.
Viewers, welcome back. You're watching 284 News. Now, Jovan, on to some very daunting statistics. We've been covering the COVID-19 situation over in the USVI
Yes.
for a number of weeks, and we just want to update the general public. We are in such close proximity to U.S. Virgin
That's
Islands that
the
we
frightening
have
part.
family and friends, are people who are at risk, a high risk, based on the statistics that we're seeing now. Tested so far, we have 4,395 tested positive. That's 217. We have 148 out of St. Croix, 62 out of St. Thomas, and 7 out of St. John. Now, negative testing, we have 4,084, 2,444 out of St. Croix, 1,496 out of St. Thomas, and 144 out of St. John. Pending tests, they are 94, 51 from St. Croix, and 39 from St. Thomas, and 4 in St. John that are still pending. Active cases 104, 83 out of St. Croix, 19 from St. Thomas, and 3 in St. John. Recovered patients 106, 61 out of St. Croix, and 41 out of St. Thomas, 4 out of St. John. Persons under investigation presently in the U.S. Virgin Islands, that's 58, 55 from St. Croix, 2 St. Thomas, and 1 in St. John. Fatalities, 6 unfortunate deaths, 4 in St. Croix, 2 St. Thomas, and none at St. John. Now, in light of this, the U.S. Virgin Islands has implemented some travel restrictions
Yes.
along with the United States government, and they are currently 11 states and territories under travel restrictions into the U.S. Virgin Islands. That's Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Idaho. We have Kansas City, Mississippi, Nevada, Puerto Rico, South Carolina, Texas, and Utah. Travelers from those states and territories must present a test result showing they have tested negative for COVID-19 while within 5 days upon their arrival into the territory. We see, Jovan, where Governor Bryant and his team have kind of pedaled back and reshifted their approach. Recently, in addition to what I just shared with the viewing audience, they have retracted on bars and restaurants. So contrary to what they have done in the past where they are allowing the level of openness, they've now retracted that. So bars and restaurants, have been retracted. And I think it's necessary. Yeah.
It is necessary, and it's we are in close proximity to the USVI, but very different management styles as
Of
it
course.
comes to the management of the BVI as well as the USVI as it relates to managing this pandemic. Definitely the USVI has been a bit more relaxed, and we see the numbers continue to fluctuate, and especially recently. I mean, 105 is a lot with 6 deaths.
I really love your articulation of management
Yes.
styles, because that's what a lot of persons throughout the region and internationally need
Right.
to understand. Each territory, each Caribbean territory is governed by a
gonna be
different
different.
protocol, and what works for us may not work for our
Right.
neighbors. And at the end of the day, it is left up to the governments of each federation or country or territory to do what works best for them.
Right.
What we've seen work for us is doing pretty well, but we're now getting to a point where our borders are still closed. So we now have to perhaps look at our Caribbean brothers and sisters and their reintegration process. But at the end of the day, what works for us may not work for other persons.
I think the Prime Minister of Jamaica really coined it best. He said, a healthy economy is dependent on healthy people.
Absolutely.
And so I think, like you said, the local government has really championed the health aspect of this COVID-19 effort. Now it's just about rebooting and getting back
The
to a place
economy,
where we're
yeah.
financially stable. Viewers, we're going to move right along. The Minister for Natural Resources, Labor and Immigration, Honorable Vincent Whitley, has stated that his ministry is working diligently to create and implement the framework necessary for key aspects of the territory's resources to be protected and sustainably managed. Now, Honorable Vincent Whitley, in a statement during the 12th sitting of the second session of the 4th House of Assembly, explained that a number of actions are being taken in regards to environmental protection. Gorda Peak was one of the areas highlighted. Now, earlier last month, the minister had announced the closure of the the Gorda Peak National Park, that is, just based on recent field investigations by the National Parks Trust staff that verified that several areas of Gorda Peak that had been illegally cleared for farming, along with the presence of construction supplies on site. And he said, quote, there is a foundation already established for a wooden building, and that is being thoroughly investigated, end of quote. He also, in addressing the Speaker of the House, said, quote, under the National Parks Trust of the Virgin Islands Regulations 2018, Section 14.1, number 1 says, no person shall in a park destroy, damage, remove, move, manipulate, tamper, or attempt to tamper with any natural or historical resources or physical structures inside a park. Further, Section 14.2a says, a person who contravenes subregulation 1 commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $10,000 or also imprisonment for a term not exceeding a year, or both. End of quote. Now, Honorable Whitley also highlighted the ban to TBT and some suntan lotions that contains chemicals that are detrimental to marine life.
Yes.
He said the monitoring and protection of natural resources is taking place above and below sea level, including the current fight against the stony coral tissue, which we've been hearing about a lot in the news recently, a disease that came down from Florida, which is essentially killing off our coral life. And also the banning of raw sewage being dumped into our waters in the territory, for which also the legislation is underway. He added, quote, These measures are designed to ensure that ours and our future generations may inherit a clean and healthy environment. Our waters are a key to our survival, and the imposition of a ban on harmful chemicals or the discharge of sewage will go a long way in maintaining the integrity of our natural resources and our continued well-being. End of quote. The Ministry of Labor and Natural Resources continues to effectively manage and administer natural resources of the territory in a manner that ensures the long-term sustainability. Now, Ron, for years, I know we've been having
These
the
conversations,
conversation, definitely on how do we preserve our environment, especially since it ties into our national tourism product, and we're so dependent on it. And I think if we are that dependent on our tourism product, it is time for us to preserve the environment. So I'm happy to see the necessary framework, the legislation coming to support that.
I agree.
Viewers, is still ahead. Trump commutes longtime friend Roger Stone's prison sentence. And believe it or not, Mr. Richard Branson has secured $1.8 billion to restart the operations of Virgin Atlantic amidst this pandemic. All that and so much more when we return.
I love you, Penny. Run, Forrest, run! Move it. Man, I'm sick of being in this house. I just want to go to the beach for all good just one day and gather to the garden. I'm sick of being in this house.
Having withdrawals from being stuck in the house for so long? Are you tired of looking at your old photos and daydreaming about your next vacation? Well, BVI Staycation is back, and there's so much to choose from. For more information on upcoming deals, follow us on Facebook at BVI Staycation. Get ready, BVI, for an adventure in paradise. It's time to vacation where we live.
Viewers, welcome back. You're watching 284 News. Now, out of the United States Virgin Islands, Washington, the Associated Press has reported that President Donald Trump has commuted the sentence of his longtime political confidant Roger Stone, intervening in extraordinary fashion in a criminal case that was central to the Russia investigation and that concerned the president's own conduct. Now, the move came on a Friday, just days before Stone was to begin his serving his 40-month prison sentence for lying to Congress, witness tampering, and of course obstructing the House investigation into whether Trump's campaign collided with Russia to win the 2016 general elections. Now, the action, which Trump had foreshadowed in recent days, underscores the president's lingering rage over special counsel Robert Mueller investigation, and that is also a part of a continuing effort by the president and his administration to rewrite the narrative of a probe that has shadowed the White House from the onset. Democrats already have sounded an alarm by the Justice Department's earlier dismissal of the case against Trump's first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and denounced the president as further undermining the rule of law. Stone, 67, had been set to report to prison on Tuesday, and after a federal appeals court rejected his bid to postpone his surrender date, but now he told the Associated Press that Trump called him on Friday of last week evening to tell him he was off the hook. He said, and I quote, "The president told me that he had decided in an act of clemency to issue a full commutation of my sentence, and he urged me to vigorously pursue my appeal and my vindication." Now, Stone said by phone from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where he was celebrating, as he said, with friends. He said, and I quote, he had to change rooms because there was, quote, listen to this, Joe,
Wow.
too much opening bottles of champagne here, so he could not hear what he was saying and speaking to the Associated Press, so he had to switch rooms. Although commutation does not nullify Stone's felony conviction, it really protects him from serving any sort of prison sentence as a result. Now, the move is another extraordinary intervention by Trump in the nation's justice system and underscores really the really perspective and the sole value of the justice system when a president of the United States can solely just step in and say, no, I'm going to do this based on a friendship. I think it really speaks volumes, Jovan, and it's sending a very loud and clear message to the United States as it pertains to the President of the United States and his stance on certain issues that, you know, might not be of interest to him. And it's devastating when we push law and order, we push, especially in a time of where we're living in, and justice and police brutality and justice being what it is, it's quite embarrassing. It's quite devastating to see this type of behavior, and it
it's
is what
plain
it is.
old corruption, in
And it's
my
and
opinion.
it's as plain as day. There's no hiding. There's no stealing from the cookie jar. This is in your face.
Yes, and viewers, I mean, there's a lot to go around when it comes to this story, especially, you know, if we can reflect on the Mueller investigation that really seek to show how Russia interfered in the most recent election in the United States. And this man was seriously implicated in
Yes.
in that situation. So again, it really, again, like you said, Trump is setting a precedence, and it happens
That's
to
the
be a very
unfortunate- yeah.
dangerous one, especially being that he's the leader of one of the largest nations in the world. So viewers will continue to monitor this one. We are out of time. We were hoping to bring you some information on Richard Branson.
Yeah, that 1.8 billion
Yes,
bailout.
securing $1.8 billion that is, to bail out Virgin Atlantic. We have the details on that via our website, so you can check us out there. You can also follow us on Facebook,
Yes.
284 Media, 284 BVI on Instagram, as well as Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I'm Ron Grant. We will, of course, see you tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and, of course, international content. We're 284 Media, your source for honest and impartial news. Have a terrific rest of your Tuesday, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.